Hey guys, Jessica here, and this is Chris, my co-founder at Uprise. Today we're going to be covering super common mistakes that we've seen people make when they are considering joining a startup. In fact, these are mistakes that we've made as well. And so we're going to talk through that. This is a super common question that we get from people at Uprise or customers at Uprise, thinking through, how to navigate a startup job offer. Before jumping into it, quick mention that we're Uprise. We're a fintech company that puts together personalized Wall Street level financial plans completely free. And this is a lot of what we do. People come in with questions about their specific situations, and we help them figure out how to optimize. So if you want to get your personalized financial plan, definitely check us out. I've linked to us in the description below. And also, please give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. It really helps small channels like ours. Ready? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Somebody's joining a startup or thinking about jumping into the startup world first time. What would you say is the most important thing that you would tell somebody first?
The most important thing I would tell someone joining a startup is to optimize for learning. Figure out, what do you want to learn? Do you want to learn what it's like to be right there at the very beginning of a company? Do you want to figure out what it's like to be at a company that's figured something out but just needs to grow a lot more? And then what kind of space do you want to explore? Are you interested in real estate? Are you interested in finance? Whatever that is. What do you want to learn? And that's the number one thing I would tell people.
That's an interesting one because so I think it's true for all companies. It doesn't matter what kind of job you're looking for. If you are optimizing for maximum learning, then you'll be in good shape, right? Whatever it is that you do. But I think the tricky part is what you were saying is how do you know what stage of company you want? How do you know if you want to learn the beginning stages of a company or the later stages of a company or what industry? Especially if you're in the early parts of your career or the beginning of your career, a lot of things sound really interesting. And how do you think about narrowing that stuff down?
I think for me, it's, and I think this is true for a lot, it's the stuff that you can't stop thinking about. Kind of I feel like F. Scott Fitzgerald once said that
I'm in the presence of culture here.
People everyone kind of has one story and they keep telling it over and over in different ways. I think that's kind of true. If you think of F. Scott Fitzgerald's novels, there's a consistent thread throughout all of them. Hemingway too, etc. But I think people kind of have they just have these things that they keep coming back to. For me, automation is I love just automating things. I love hitting the button on the dishwasher, and I love the fact that there's a machine there that's just running in the background, and I feel like I'm getting double the amount of things done. There are these things that you just kind of keep coming back to, so that's how I think about it.
That's interesting. I think maybe my journey has been a little bit different. I always have one thing in mind that I really want to learn at any point in time. And so when I graduated from college, it was investment banking. And I was I want to learn everything about investment banking. And then I felt after I got a grasp, it took a year, 2 years. Okay, I think I got the nuts and bolts of balance sheets and income statements and whatever. It's what do I want to learn next? Oh, I want to learn about decision making, as a company. How do you make the decision of buying and selling companies and M&A and this kind of stuff? And so then I moved there. Then there was a period of my life where I was I really want to learn international expansion. And then I was I really want to learn how to build a team and lead a team. And I felt it was okay. If I at the beginning of my career said I'm going to sit here and I'm going to figure out what it is I want to do for the rest of my life, that would be too much. That was too daunting. But I just needed to pick one thing. And that would allow me to take that first step or focus, right? And help me take that first step. And then I look back on my career and I'm each thing that I did, it wasn't like I was only learning that one thing. There was a lot of other stuff happening around me and things like, as long as I kept my eyes open, once I felt like, okay, I'm good on this one, what is it that I want to learn next? Yeah. There's always plenty of stuff. And as long as it's like interesting to me, I feel like my career has just like, kept me really motivated. And you look back and you're like, wow, I did a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, so I think you're making a good point. Like, I think what I said was more true for thinking about kind of your fundamental narrative or that story. That's something that's more applicable for people who kind of want to start a company, I think. Thinking about that kind of primal narrative that you might have. And that's something that you really discover after trying a bunch of stuff, like you just said. And each time you're kind of like, going with, at least for me, you're thinking about, okay, like, what do I care about now? Where do I want to grow? And you're just trying stuff. You're going with your best guess. Like, I think, like, I want to learn more about this, or I want to learn more about that. And you, think about what that is, and then you go with the place that you think will give you the most learnings in that area.
Yeah. Like, optimize for learning, whatever it is, don't overthink it, end up in a good spot. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Second thing we wanted to talk about is to like take the time to understand the team, the culture, the product, the company, basically, that you're going to be joining. I'll start on this one with a personal experience. So there was one job that I took where I did the entire interview process in 2 weeks. I was abroad at the time, so everything was through Zoom. Talked to like 4 people in the company through the interview process, and then signed the offer. Like, not to say that I wouldn't have signed the offer if I had dug in further, but I should have dug in further. I think that would have managed my expectations or set my expectations up for when I joined. And one of the things that I would have done is like, in addition to the people who are still at the company, also talk to alumni of the company, because like, they will be honest in a way that like nobody else will be, about the good things about the company, but also about, hey, these are some of the things that you should watch out for. That would have helped me understand the company, and the well-rounded picture, rather than just the marketing stuff, that they sell you when you're interviewing for a role.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For me, so the way that, like, I'll talk about this in the frame of like when I joined the last startup I was at, Justworks, I was the second employee there, and then so it was a very, very small team. But I thought about the things that to take it back to kind of the last thing we were talking about. I thought about in terms of like, what do I want to learn? And what I wanted to learn was how to start a startup from the ground up. And that was the main thing I wanted to learn. And then when it came to the team, the CEO, the founder, was this guy who was, his name's Isaac, an incredible human being, someone who had successfully started a company and then sold it, and had an engineering product management background. And then the piece that we're talking about right now, the culture. So Isaac ended up hiring like one of my close friends, Chang, as the first employee, first engineer at the company. So I knew that like I was learning from great people, and I was learning from, and I was going to be around people that I really loved being around. So tick both of those boxes for me.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point on team, because like one of the things that you have to think about is like, especially when you're joining a startup, is like, you don't know, like hopefully the startup is in great shape and it's like growing like crazy and you're on a rocket ship, but like there's so much risk at those early stages, right? There's ups, but then there are also downs. And so maybe one other thing to say about this is, A, do you personally have the resilience? And then B, is this a team that's going to help you or that you want to be resilient with?
So the third thing that we wanted to talk about is the idea that you should care about what you're learning, and then you should care about the team and the culture, but you shouldn't focus or fixate specifically on your specific role at the company or the manager that you might have. especially in startups, particularly in startups, because while the general area that you're working on, like the industry, the sector, and the general team and the culture, that's less likely to change, your role and your manager is pretty highly likely to change, actually, in a fast-moving, fast-growing company.
So if I could break that down, I joined TransferWise as when they were Series B, Series C, and I remember actually that I was hired in as to work on the partnerships. Right? They were like, okay, as a company now, we are ready to grow beyond just our core product. We want to do partnerships with other companies, and then hired into that role, get there and realize it's not ready at all. In fact, in order to do partnerships, you need to have an API layer, and which required a decent amount of work from the engineering side, and none of that was ready, basically. So there wasn't anything that you could do until the engineering piece was ready. And I remember having a conversation with my boss at the time, and I was just the team was reflecting on, hey, we don't think that there's a ton. We need to focus more on the engineering piece. As the product person, there isn't a ton here, not for at least 6 months or something along those lines. And at the time, I remember three months in, you've already proven yourself. They definitely want to keep you around. And so they're like, what else do you want to work on? And at a fast growing company, at a company that is just has more stuff to do than people to do it with, there's tons of stuff to work on. And at the time I was like, oh, I want to work on this. The product hadn't, I wanted to work on international expansion, translating the product into a ton of different languages. And I was like, I want to work on that. And they were like, okay. And so I ended up working on that. And so I feel like in a startup, there's just so many moving pieces to your point, but that's just a practical example of at least how it happened for me.
Yeah. Just to build on that a little bit. So my own experience was that I joined Justworks as a software engineer. I did that for a couple of years, knowing, I think, not knowing for sure, but knowing that I likely wanted to do product management in the long run. And like you just said, at a startup, there's a million things to do and not enough people to do all of those things. So what I did was I just kind of kept volunteering and raising my hand whenever there was anything product management related that needed to be done. User testing, writing specs, I just raised my hand. I remember for one feature, I just decided to go off and over Labor Day weekend, draft up a bunch of specs before anyone else could, because I wanted to show that I could do it.
Yeah.
And then I just kept doing that kind of thing until eventually they asked me, well, would you like to move into product management? And I said yes. And this is also a general bit of advice that I would give people is if you want to change careers like that, it's much easier to do it within a startup, a growing organization, than trying to be a software engineer one place and apply for a product management job at another place, for example.
A lot of people have asked hey, I'm a software engineer, I want to transition to product, or I'm a product manager, I want to transition to design. That's definitely the best way, which is not to try to jump straight to the end point. You already have experience as a software engineer or as a product manager, get a role at a fast growing company in what you know, and then keep volunteering. It'll naturally happen. It is seen it happen so many times. In fact, not just those things, right? It's I've seen people from customer support go into operations, customer support go into product, operations go into analytics. It's just, there's so much stuff happening, and it's just a really dynamic place. Along those same lines, I've actually also heard a lot of people, and in my time too, at TransferWise, I think I changed 3 managers. I had 3 different managers in 3 years. And so even if there's the manager, somebody that you really respect, you really want to learn from, you have to keep in mind that people move on, people change roles, as we just mentioned. And so you have to, that's why we said that the point, because we talked a little bit about this before, we said that the point about knowing the entire team and the entire culture of the company is more important than your specific manager, because those things shift, but the team and the culture kind of stay constant throughout.
Yep.
Okay, so then the last point we have, which is a very, very common mistake that we see people make, is when they start thinking about startups, they don't put enough emphasis on equity.
Yeah, like I think it's something I've seen firsthand. It's something we've seen a lot in the users that come to us at Uprise, where surprisingly often people will just say, "Oh, it's a startup. I'm going to kind of assume that the equity is worthless, and I'm not going to think about that." And I've seen at many places actually, surprisingly, I know the odds are generally against it, but like it does happen. People's equity is worth a lot of money in many cases. But unless you exercise those options, unless you think about maybe doing early exercise, filing your 83B, you could be missing out on a lot of money. And really, when you think about it, like the way that people ultimately get wealthy in this world is via ownership of some sort of business or company. And it's not from collecting a salary, however high it may be. It's from owning a piece of a business.
Yeah. I think that's a fundamental point, which is like you have to prioritize thinking about equity at the startup when you get the offer, because it is the thing that, like, if the company takes off, right, that is what it will also take off. Whereas your salary just stays constant. I have a story so you guys may have seen MailChimp, the email client. They had a policy that they didn't give any of their employees equity. They're a startup, but they didn't give any of their employees equity. And then they just sold to Intuit for billions and billions of dollars. And the two founders split the gains, I guess, like between the two of them. And the employees and the ex-employees especially didn't get much out of it. The way I think about it in my head structurally is that, yes, you shouldn't expect that the equity is going to be worth a ton of money and start spending from that equity in the beginning, before it becomes liquid. So you should manage your personal finances responsibly, live off of your base salary. Mm-hmm. But the equity piece is the lottery ticket. The equity piece is like, okay, I hope it becomes something. If it does become something, this is the thing that could potentially change your quality of life, right? Yeah. Meaningfully. The other thing I would say about this is that when you get the offer, when you're negotiating your job offer, that's kind of like your one window to really negotiate the equity piece. Because so as the company becomes bigger, as it proves out more hypotheses, as it becomes less risky over time, the amount of equity you get in subsequent years, it's smaller and smaller and smaller. So when you have an offer, that is the early stage that the startup will ever be, right? And so that's your opportunity to negotiate as much equity as you can. And my general advice to people is be willing to lower your base even to get more equity. Don't ever lower your base to a point where you need to, it puts your personal finances in jeopardy. Make sure that the base salary, the cash component of it, is something where you can maintain your lifestyle. You can live without, needing to go into debt or anything like that. Put all of the rest of your energy into negotiating that equity piece and getting it as high as possible, getting benchmarks, talking to friends, reaching out to Uprise, etc. This is definitely something that we can help with.
Yeah. And that's it. If you have any other questions about this topic, we'd love to hear them. Let us know in the comments below, and we'll respond to all of them. Also, if you need any support with personal finance, we are Uprise. We do 100% free Wall Street level financial plans. You just tell us everything about you, and then we'll figure out how to optimize your money. You can sign up for free in the link below. Other than that, if you'd like to see more videos like this one, give us a thumbs up, hit the bell for notifications, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Thanks.